Carmen, we're live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Gathering for Justice ongoing virtual town hall series. My name is Carmen Perez, and I am here with my family at the Gathering for Justice. For those of you who don't know, the Gathering for Justice was founded by legendary Harry Belafonte in 2005 after he saw a story on the news about a 5-year-old Black girl in Florida being handcuffed in her kindergarten class for throwing a tantrum. After realizing that children of color were being brutalized by police across the nation, despite the work of the civil rights movement, Mr. B, who we love so dearly, brought together elders and youth from across the United States to form a covenant to end child incarceration and dismantle the systemic racism in our juvenile justice system. His first action was to convene a gathering of the elders. And you'll hear some of my colleagues who were part of that. Actually, I wasn't. I was convened at the gathering of the youth. I was one of those young people invited in 2005. I came under the mentorship of Nane Alejandres, who founded Barrios Unidos, and whom I was running program inside prisons and detention centers in California. At the meeting, Mr. Belafonte told us that the agenda was to find the agenda for how we would stop the incarceration of our children and build a national movement to end child incarceration. 16 years later, the work continues, but the Gathering for Justice still has youth leading. It's one of our greatest strengths. And this seems like the perfect time to introduce my co-host and somebody who I call my son for tonight's program, Luis Hernandez, the Gathering's National Director of Youth Campaigns and Leadership. Welcome, Luis.
Ooh, thank you, Carmen. I'm so excited to be here. Today's program is going to be phenomenal. We have all our friends, family, close colleagues, everybody on this call. And so I just know that this conversation is going to be fruitful, but I just want to say we're at 16 years and I remember what it was like to turn 16. And so I just know that today we're not just celebrating 16 years of work, but we're celebrating 16 years of success, 16 years of movement building. And so just wanted to share briefly that when I first met the Gathering in Justice League NYC, it was when they helped my brother get free from Rikers Island. For more than a year, he had been confined behind the bars in that island for a crime he didn't commit. And I remember it was probably like a Friday afternoon, and Sean King had called my mom and put her on a three-way. He said he was going to connect her to someone who was one of the most dynamic organizers in New York, who was not just going to get my brother free, was going to make sure that charges were going to get dismissed and that there was going to be some mobilization around his case. And I remember in just that weekend, we met up the following Monday, I believe, at a meeting room in the Bronx, not too far from where I lived at the time. And there was like 50 folks in the room, all who represented different organizations, politicians, stakeholders, funders, who came together to really just provide wraparound services for my family. And I had no idea who these folks were, but I remember running off the meeting afterwards, elated that someone was finally hearing us and listening to us. And I had searched Carmen's name, and I saw all the news articles pop up about how she had just organized one of the largest single-day demonstrations in the country's history. And I'm like, I looked at my mom in the car ride back home and I'm like, do you know who we just met with? And she's like, no, who? And so I started to tell her about the work that I was hearing and seeing, but it wasn't to probably a year later that I actually got to learn more about Carmen and the powerful work that happened, the culmination of work that happened that led up to that largest single day protest in our country's history. But what I know is that the Gathering and Justice League has pushed for and led so many legislative wins, has fought to raise the age in the state of New York, where youth no longer have to be incarcerated at the age of 16 and 17 with adults in prisons and jails across the state. They've worked hard to repeal 58, to unseal NYPD disciplinary records. Across the state of California, there's so many legislative wins. Just recently, youth prisons were shut down because of the work of the Gathering and folks like Jasmine Delafoz, who are leading our efforts out there. Bills like SB 2 and SB 299 which provides financial support for families impacted by police violence, and so much more, has recently passed. And so tonight we're going to be joined by many of our accomplices who've led these fights, who've been by our side all along the way. And I'm incredibly humbled and honored to be a co-host with Carmen tonight. But before I bring our guest in, I know that Carmen wanted to sort of talk a little bit about our history and how we both began here as young people coming to the gathering. Myself at 14, I'm not exactly sure how young Carmen was when she came to the gathering, but I know that she's been in this work since losing her sister at 16. And so, Carmen, I really just want to hear from you before we bring in some of the panelists. What was your experience like first coming to a gathering, meeting Mr. B, and really just doing the work? I think I posted something today about doing the work. I posted a quote about James Baldwin where he talks about our purpose in life is to do the work, and in doing the work, changing the world. And so I feel like that's what you've instilled in me as my mentor, and in so many other young people that I know and folks older than me that you've mentored as well. And so just wanting to hear about how Mr. B has instilled that in you, and in everyone who the gathering has touched.
Thank you so much, Louis. That is an excellent question. First of all, I am so excited to be on here. I could see the list of speakers. We're going to take everybody way back to 2005. But I remember meeting Mr. Belafonte when we were at a meeting in Los Angeles with Father Greg Boyle, Danny Glover, Nane, and we were talking about Homeboy Coffee. And it was really about fair trade. And I remember just kind of thinking to myself, how blessed am I to be here in the presence of all these great people. I remember, at the time we didn't really have phones, but just writing so much information down, writing words that I didn't understand. I didn't really know anything about like economic development or fair trade or, what it would mean to like have your own coffee that you would grow and distribute. But it was an honor. And again, I think sometimes like yourself, right, meeting me for the first time, organizing the largest single day protest with Tamika, Linda, Bob, and so many others, I didn't know who I was in the room with until afterwards. And it was truly, and I will always remember that day. I will always remember the elevator ride that I was in with Mr. B, and just, the way he kind of talks to you, and we're going to be bringing some of the folks that interacted with Mr. B a lot, could crack some jokes with us. But it was important for me to listen, right? I think oftentimes we find ourselves in meetings and we think we have all the solutions, but in that moment, I was a fly on the wall. I was somebody who was absorbing everything. I was a sponge. I wanted to learn. I wanted to just be like them, like I wanted to speak so eloquently. I wanted to think about solutions the way they did. And so for the past 16 years, I've been at the feet of these amazing giants, and still, through every event, Danny Glover and Nane and Mr. B still, crack jokes and show up for us. So I'm truly honored and, excited about today's conversation. But one thing that I say I will take from Mr. B is the fact that there's a lane for everybody. It doesn't matter what baggage you have, or it doesn't matter how squeaky clean you are, like there's a lane for you. And so I always try to make sure that I create lanes for people to get involved. And so, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it around and ask you, like, what, I know that we worked on the campaign, but I don't think many people know I had asked you to join Justice League when you were 14 years old, and you kind of like, were like, okay. And you did to me, you kind of like, what dodged me, right? You curved me the way in which I did Nane when I first met Nane, and we giggle about this. But what actually finally made you say yes to coming on board? And what is one of the things that you feel you've taken away from Mr. B?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that forever, and it goes back to the motto that you teach us, not just staff, but every jail member: touch people 3 times, because it was actually after the 3rd time that you invited me to be a jail member, that I showed up to a meeting. You were like, we have a meeting such and such day, pull up. But it was, and I think my sister's going to be joining soon as well. I think she's on this program as well. But Bria hit me up. Bria was working closely with you. I think she might have been your EA at the time. And I had organized the action at my school, a walkout against gun violence. And Bria DM'd me and she's like, I see you working, brother. When you pulling up to one of our Justice League meetings? And I'm like, whenever you tell me to. And she sent me the time and date. And then I remember you followed up, Carmen. You were like, be here at this meeting. And I show up to the meeting and all these folks, I walk in and all these folks are already organizing. They're plotting for an upcoming action. And I'm just like, what is going on in here? It was like a literal, what they now call war room. But it was my first experience being in one of those. And it was just bulletins on the board, people writing, folks taking notes, some people pacing back and forth, other people on calls. And it was that magical sort of organizing culture that I immediately felt immersed into. But I think what's so powerful about the story of like Bria actually being the person to eventually bring me in through you, of course, is that that's exactly what you model in the gathering, right? You create spaces for young people and develop their leadership so that they can go out and touch their own peers, right? That we can go into our schools, go into our communities, go into basketball courts, like talk to our own friends. And I think that's exactly like what this society needs, what our movements need, to make sure that young folks feel welcomed. Because I mean, I love you now, Carmen, but back then I was like, who is this lady? Why is she persistent? What is Justice League? What is this about? And in a lot of ways, I was just like, I mean, yeah, like it was social justice work. I sort of understood it, but not to the context that you all did at the time. And so it wasn't clear to me like what I'd be doing. I'm like, I don't know what I'm signing up for, so I don't think I'm going to sign up. But it was, I think, truly one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life to show up to that meeting, because I never looked back since. And it's been history literally since. And so just want to send love to you. But to answer your second question around what I've learned from Mr. B, I've learned so much. But I remember sitting at his feet when you all brought us to his home to just talk about the work and how we're continuing his legacy. He reminded us that each generation has to be responsible for its own folks. He let us know, I had asked a question of advice really about what my generation can be doing to advance the movement and advance the work and the foundation that him and his peers had laid. And he let me know that he can tell me a million things, but it's really for us to come up with the innovative solutions that we need in the moment. It's up to us to organize our people in this moment. It's up to us to continue the work. And that was exactly what I needed to hear, because so often young people talk about these generational divides that they have with elders, but I think it's because they're not hearing from someone like Mr. B, who is passing on the baton, who is cultivating the leadership of young people, who is working with us, right? Mr. B is always a phone call away from you. I remember in one meeting, he told you, Carmen, my love, I'm exhausted. You got this. And that to me was so powerful, not just because he was sort of in his true authentic self, expressing where he was and in his space, but because he's entrusting you to continue the work, right? And he doesn't need to be in the meeting. He doesn't need you to report back to him. He doesn't need to listen into your meetings, make sure you're doing the right thing or not. He trusts you to do that work. And that's exactly what you do for me and what you do for so many other folks in this space. And so that's why I love you all so much. And I'm so excited to be on this program. But I really want to hear from some of the other amazing folks. So I'm going to pass it back to you, Carmen, to bring in some of your OGs, because I'm so excited to hear some of these stories from the past and get some laughs in.
We love you too, and so always proud of you. I want to welcome, I know we were going to try to give folks like, one-on-one time, but, I see CJ, I see Pastor Curtis, and I see just Siri on here. And you said something that came up at the very first gathering of the youth and elders that actually was the catalyst as to how we got here. And it was, the young people kicked out the elders from the room. And so I don't know, I want to welcome somebody, And so when you said this generational divide, right? Like it showed up for us, like, and it was crazy. And one of the things that I and we got so many stories, CJ. So we, let's also share some of those times when we were like tasked to organize around the country. But one of the things that I definitely remember just Siri saying, like, we all suffer from the same oppression, right? Like that was so prominent in a lot of like what you shared with us. But who wants to tell the story of when, and CJ, like you talk a lot about how in Milwaukee, you lost so many of your male figures, right? And at the young age of, I don't know, was it 27, 26, 28, you had to become the oldest male in your family. And so the tension was there because of, and I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to let y'all continue the sentence.
First, it's a blessing to even be on a call with my people again. Like, oh my God, this brings back so many memories. So the gathering for me, Jasiri knows because Jasiri was coming from Pittsburgh. We had the Frank Jude trial happening, and we also had a mayoral election. And I was surrounded by some of the most amazing poets in the world, Muhib Dair and Kwabanan, and one of the most brilliant minds politically, who's now a PhD, Biko Baker, right? And so when I came to the gathering, even though I was doing the work in Milwaukee, I didn't feel worthy of being there because I'm not gonna name names because if I don't want to forget anybody because they're so dope and so they were so amazing, so brilliant, and I didn't speak. Like when we went to the gathering, the Asians, the gathering of Onondaga, when we went to Epps and we went to Tennessee, right? I never said a word. I just filmed. I was sort of like you, Carmen, with Nane. I was watching you. I'm like, why she don't talk? She's like me. Like, why she's not speaking? I just listened. I didn't even know Harry Belafonte, right? I wanted to meet Diane Nash. And so at the time of the gathering, my mother, dad, and my father, dad died at the same time. And so I specifically remember telling Mr. B, like, yo, I don't care about your celebrity. Like, I need elders. Like, my elders are dying. So if y'all, Gaylord, Nane, Albino, they all sat me down and they said, CJ, you a leader. And I was like, I don't want to be a leader. They told me to, to don't dim my light for others to shine, in so many words, right? But I didn't want to be a leader because I know it came with it. People try to tear you down and throw stones. When I know in my heart I'm a born servant. I've been doing this work since I was like 10 years old. I know my purpose, so I never wanted to be a leader. But Diane Nash, C.T. Vivian, Harry Belafonte, like they saw something in me. My friends and colleagues did too. But what I learned traveling to, traveling to these different ethnicities, and because like I have families that's indigenous, I have families from poor white communities. King nonviolence is like my life. Like I'm doing God's work, and so when I be telling people like, yo, you can't ask anybody to do, like I'm really selfless. I really don't have ego. I do this work because my elders sat me down. They told me where they failed. They told me how they succeeded. They told me the stories of Dr. King. We kicked it. Like I'm kicking it with my elders. Like, see, we kicked it. We had retreats, but humility, selflessness, like every day working on yourself. You can't ask anybody to do something you're not doing for yourself. And that's what I took away from the work that we did. I don't even know what the question was. I'm just happy to be on the phone with
y'all. Oh, you was handling it. No, I mean, it's funny because Reverend Jones was my roommate to first in Epps, Alabama. And
Yes,
I kind of similar to CJ, I didn't say anything the first gathering. We was coming from Pittsburgh, and we was actually in Pittsburgh, working with Kahari Mosley, who was a politician, and they was kind of like folks was like pressing Kahari, and so at the time, I think I was just named the Minister of the Nation at the time in Pittsburgh, so we was kind of holding Kahari down on some street like y'all ain't gonna mess with this dude. And so that's kind of what I felt my role was with the gathering. I was like, well, I'm just gonna be with Kahari. I'm gonna just, let folks know like he's connected to the brothers in the street. I wasn't, can't get nonviolence. I don't really know about that. But for me, it was, and I kind of just go to CJ, like my grandmother was indigenous, but I had never been around indigenous people. I'm from South Side of Chicago, coming to Pittsburgh. My experience was Black people in the hood. I'd never been around Latinx people, never. And so it was definitely a shock. You had talked about when everybody kicked the elders out. And like you said, I'm not saying anything anyway. So in my mind, I was like, yo, folks is tripping. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm coming from the nation where we have a certain hierarchy.
Exactly.
Be like, you think you ain't gonna kick Mr. Frank out of no, like, so I'm in my mind, I'm like, folks is tripping, but whatever. But I just remember we formed a circle and then the brother brought the sage out. Again, I've never had been saged. I don't, I didn't know nothing about none of this indigenous.
People thought it was marijuana, remember?
In LA.
I'm just glad he didn't come to me first because I didn't even know how to do the smoke, none of that. And so like I learned so much, from Mr. Belafonte. Like I feel like he invested in me. Like I owe the gathering. At the time, I was not rapping. You know what I'm saying? And One Hood was like a thought in our minds. Like we were able to establish One Hood because of these trips, like going together collectively on these trips where my plane ticket would say paid by Harry Belafonte. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I knew Mr. B, but at the time I was just in awe. I was kind of like you, Carmen. I was in the back, I was in awe. I didn't say a word, you know what I'm saying? I just kind of like watched. But I just kept showing up. And I think that's kind of like, a thing in the movement. Like I just kept coming, I kept showing up. Then I remember we were asked to do a presentation where Mr. Belafonte and the gathering helped us. We had a police pull a gun on a 6-year-old girl, threatening to blow her brains out. Mr. B came through, the gathering came through. We did a gathering in Pittsburgh. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember.
All of that was like to me, like the foundation of our movement One Hood that we have right now, where we're, this is our 15th year in One Hood. So we started in 2006. So we literally came out of the Gathering for Justice. And so we literally have this movement here where I can't even be in my office. My office right now, that's about 10 artists. We're practicing. We have a show this Friday, you know what I'm saying? Like, so my office is filled with young Black people, and that's a direct result of the mentorship of Mr. Belafonte and being able to be around folks like CJ and Carmen and Curtis and, like you said, Biko. I remember Toronto was there. It was so many.
Hold on, Siri. Don't get that dude. Don't give Mr. B all that props. It wasn't just his ass. Oh, my bad. It wasn't just Mr. B, because we had some dope elders and the young people too. So like I'm not gonna name names because I ain't gonna. But
we did have
from
CT.
CT.
Yes.
Yeah, CT. It was a
Bob
blessing.
Moses.
But also, may Bob
Talk about
Moses
it.
in power. And the brother Bo from LA.
Bo
Taylor, man, that was another who I did not know, but just, when he spoke, he just had such a profound impact on me. And I know he passed away, and it's just a brother I think about from time to time because he did have an impact. So you're right, CJ, you know what I'm saying? It was a lot of Ivanhoe, Donaldson. It was a lot of folks that were there that poured a lot into us, man. And that was a blessing.
Yeah.
Hey, Carmen, who was the chief in Onondaga?
Oh,
Chief Oren Lyons.
Oren Lyons.
That brother's bad.
Chief Oren Lyons. Yeah, come on.
No,
come
Joey.
on. Yo,
Hey,
they
CJ.
set us up.
Yes, sir. I'll tell you, I was like these brothers in Carmen. I found out about the gathering on a hubbub, right? So you mentioned Kahari. He was cool with my man from Erie, which is where I'm from, PA. Like, don't nobody know nothing about Erie, PA.
Right.
So like, it's Lake Erie. That's about it. And Kahari was cool with Dave. Dave was like, Kurt, you got to meet this guy from Pittsburgh. So I was like, all right, bet. So we got in my black, like 96 Ford Taurus and rode from Erie to Pittsburgh down 79. We got down there, we was hanging out. He was like, yo, so-and-so called and said, They doing something big in DC. And so we got to go to DC. So me, Kahari, Dave jumped in my 96 Taurus and drove to DC. Like in the same day, like wasn't the plan. We just kind of evolved into being in the lobby of this hotel in Washington, DC. And we're sitting in this lobby, it's like old classic, I forget what hotel it was. And then all of a sudden, to me, this bigger than life figure walked in the room. And it was Mr. B. And it was really kind of emotional for me because I had never met him. Of course, you know, Deo. I mean, I'm old black movies, like I'm really like in awe. And it was so humbling for me to see how humble he was and is, because he sat down and said, hey, where are you from? And Dave and I are like, Erie, Pennsylvania. He's like, well, I ain't never heard of that, but I got a feeling you got something great in you. You know what I mean? And so we went on, and fast forward to EPS was the first, I think that was the gathering of the youth was EPS. And so I told I'm from a big family, right? So I've got 13 brothers and sisters. I'm the oldest of 14. Family's big for us. And so I told my mom, my grandmother, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be Mr. Belafonte and all these people. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going because, you know, I feel like it's something I want to be a part of. And my grandmother tells me, who's since passed on, she said, Mr. Belafonte, she said, Harry Belafonte and your grandfather served in the military together, in the same platoon, same squadron, whatever the language, respectfully, military body was. They were in the same pictures together. I never met my grandfather, my paternal grandfather. He died when my mom was 4. So I shared that story with Mr. B, and he said, son, he said, I remember your grandfather. He gave me a little thing, couple little things that he legit remembered him at that time. And he said, I said, well, sir, I never met my grandfather. He, you know, he passed before I was born. He said, well, I'll be your grandfather. And it just, like, how do you not become a servant to someone and to the work of someone who is serving you at that level? You know, we could talk about mentorship and all that's wonderful and appropriate and it's powerful. But for me, when he said grandpa, which I didn't have in my life, it was transformative. So it made me sit in a room, and I'll hurry up and then we'll go back, Carmen, because you mentioned it. When those of our peers, young people, kicked the elders out, because I'm like, Jasiri, no way, I know.
I think it was anybody.
I don't know.
But you know, in the Chicano culture, you have protocol.
Protocol.
Yeah.
And check this out. Remember here, if anybody that's white watching, maybe Carmen, you made me feel some kind of way, like a gathering OG or OG in the gathering. I hope you was talking about CJ and Jasiri, not me. But
what?
Here's what I remember. Look, here's what I remember. A lot of the videos, like YouTube videos and stuff, you can see there's a scene where Mr. B, we're like sitting in a circle, and Mr. B's got the picture of the little 5-year-old girl. And he's like, look at it. Look at he is so mad because we kicked them out. And he's like, oh, no. Y'all come back in here. He said, look at it. This is what this is about. And then he got real gangster with us. He said, I paid for all y'all to get here.
Yo, I don't even look though. Jasiri, Carmen, Curtis, we shouldn't even got checked. It was the rest of our folks. We was just quiet. We was just like, why are we here, folks?
That's what happened to us. We got lined up and we all got spanked.
We all got a spanking.
We got spanked, G. I've never got checked like that since my grandmother back in the days, G. By all
it was
elders,
one of the most powerful things, because you know what? It made it real. And those of us, I'm 45, I'll be 46. So I guess I'm headed towards some level of O. And we needed that. We was young lions. We was like on the pride in our, like, gangsters and leaders in our own community. You know, we was doing the work and we felt like we had a voice, but we had to remember there's someone that came before us, someone we needed to submit to and honor and pay homage and respect to. And I love the fact that amongst the myriad of other things, Mr. B and the other elders that were there, but he as the vocal one, checked us. Because even though I didn't need a whooping for that one, there was some other stuff I probably got away with, so it balanced the matrix out.
Yeah.
Hey, yo, sorry about jumping in. But hey, do y'all remember when where were we at when even amongst ourselves, we was like having tension during a strategy session, and one of the elders from the tribe came and saged us down and took away the spirits, the negative energy. Y'all remember that?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I believe in this.
Was that
I think it was in
that might have been in
Albuquerque.
LA.
Was that in the Onondaga?
Hey, when she took it might have been Onondaga, but when she took away the spirits, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it was in the Onondaga Nation, or it was probably in Albuquerque with Chief Albino.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
One of those.
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
There was like this tension. So, the reason why we're calling these folks the OGs is because they were part of the original Gathering for Justice. And clearly we have evolved. There are new members, there are fellows, there's also Justice League. I see our Justice League members here, and so we're gonna bring them in. But CJ, before we end this section, not that I want y'all to go away because I want you to jump in. This is gonna be popcorn style. CJ, so there was the 5 national gatherings, right? It was the gathering of the youth, the gathering of the elders, the gathering of the youth, the gathering with the Chicano Latinos in Santa Cruz, the gathering with the indigenous folks at the Onondaga Nation, the gathering with the API community, and the gathering with the poor white folks, right? And then we had a national convention. Before the national convention, we had 14 regional gatherings.
In Oakland.
We had 14 regional gatherings. That's where One Hood really held it down, brought Mr. B to Pittsburgh. We had different gatherings across the nation. Then we had the national convention where we adopted Kenyan nonviolence as our ideology. And then we decided to organize nationally and dig deeper in different communities. And so CJ and I were tasked to organize around the country. And CJ, let them know, CJ, what they did to us as young organizers. I don't think many people understand, but I will say, I think like Tamika, my son, Linda, folks on here that I see will appreciate it because we were also kind of doing the same thing, but.
Yo, me, Carmen, and Malia, we were on floors. We were on, not that we didn't have a bed, not that we didn't have the bread, but like we organized in Little Rock, we organized in New York, we organized in Pittsburgh and Milwaukee, like learning and finding our way, trying to. Columbus. Oh yeah, I forgot. Hi Tim. How could I forget Hi Tim and Devin? Of course, Columbus. Like we were organizing. It was never about money. Like it's always freedom and liberation. Like we didn't care if we didn't get the 5-star hotel. Like just get us there and let us do the work. And that's all we did was do the work, figure it out, build, plant these seeds. Right. That was because Mr. B said. I remember him bouncing an imaginary ball. He said, how do you organize? And he was doing this. And he said, if you bounce the ball, the kids will come. Then the kids be missing from the village. Then the moms will come. Then the elders will come. He said, it's that simple. Don't make it complex. So we parachuted into these communities. We didn't come in like, hey, oftentimes national folks come in or people who are educated come in and say, hey, I can save you. I got all the answers. Come in with love. Come in and listen. Like it's not complicated. Like a lot of times folks know what the answers are. They may not know how to get the resources. They may not know where to go or who to turn to, but these communities are already organized. Just come in with love. Shut up and listen like we did for a year or two. Like we did, like we were trained and taught. Listen, and then you build. And so me, C, Peasy, Malia, and like Mr. B, look, it's my birthday, by the way, too, so I'm kind of lit, too, y'all. One thing they know is, like, I'm always keeping 1,000. I'm in Houston. So I'm on a call. I'm going to have to hop off because I got a flight to catch. But I'm going to end with this. I remember, like, back when we were first starting this work, right? it's not about anything other than love, freedom. Like I used to tell Mr. B, like, y'all didn't free us. Like, why do y'all? Mr. B didn't really rock with a lot of these civil rights artists, like activists, if we're being honest. Like how we be having disagreements amongst ourselves, and people like celebrate Dr. King, like transparency. Like we're gonna have disagreements, y'all. We're not gonna like folks are attacking uh Tamara, right? No, Mallory, right? Tamika Mallory, right? They're attacked. We're gonna have disagreements. Our community has to hold each other down and love each other because nobody has freed us. Freedom is the objective. Get out of your ego. Lose that. Like, I don't care what you're doing. Be selfless and be selfish because this work will drain you. Take care of yourself, right? And love, unconditional love, and being peaceful and being a servant, that's all that matters. That's what we learned from that. That's what I got out from it. I'm gonna shut up because I had to get it all in because I know how to.
I know. But
I love y'all.
That I want to share with folks. Thank you so much, CJ. Is that Mr. B really wanted us to organize in community, and so he really wouldn't allow us to sleep in these hotels. We used to have to sleep on floors. We slept on benches. We slept wherever we could. We slept in community, right? He would say, how can we pay for a 400 hotel when the person you're serving can't even make the light bill? And so we did a lot of that in Columbus, in Chicago, and Little Rock, and sometimes in New York. But I want to tap in some of my Justice League family. Thank you so much, CJ.
Love y'all.
Because I know Jasiri, you've been able to work with our folks, my son, Tamika, Linda, and I think we got Karis, we got Michael Blake, but I want to tap y'all in because one of the things that people didn't realize is the fact that we actually didn't have money, right? Mr. Belafonte could no longer sustain the movement with his credit card, right? And so we were at a point where I felt that I needed to bring folks like a Linda, a Myson, a Tamika to the table to build Justice League, to build collective power, because for me, it was better that we combined our resources. That's how we got fed, right? Tamika at the time was, doing communications. So we needed to bring that communications to the cause. Linda was working with the Muslim family, but also not only was she doing communication, she had been in the movement since she was a child, part of the National Action Network, really part of the Black liberation movement. Linda had been working in the Muslim community. My boy Marvin was like, yo, you got to hit the sister up. And my son was an artist who was directly impacted of the issue we were fighting against. And so I want to bring Tamika, Linda, my son, y'all could stay on, Jasiri and Curtis. But I just want to hear from you all because in 2014, we launched Justice League NYC. And we had our first meeting, I think in January, and Linda, you were there. I'm not sure if Cassidy is here. Would love to hear from Cassidy and even maybe Jules, but you were there. Tell me, Linda, what was, we weren't even called Justice League, right? We were called like leadership group or something like that. We became Justice League later. But why do you think it was so important for us to come together like Voltron?
Sorry, getting off of you. I'm in a little Middle Eastern supermarket running errands, but I couldn't not be on here today. It was actually that day that I got to meet you, Carmen, through Marvin Bang, who I had met through Bill Lynch, who was also, may God rest his soul, was also a mentor to many of us in the political world here in New York City. And I got to meet Marvin, who was a mentee of Bill Lynch. And then through Marvin, I was invited to this meeting that I walked into at the 1199 building with you, Carmen. And it was just beautiful to see all these mostly young people, different, people of different, we had folks in there who were organizers, people who were lawyers. And that's actually the first time I ever met Angelo Pinto, Esquire, who now is one of the co-founders of Until Freedom with me and Tamika and my son. So got to meet a lot of great people. And I heard you earlier, folks talking about Mr. Belafonte. I wanted to share a recent story about Mr. B just to show you how, even as he continues to grow older, always thinking about other people, always defying folks around him for what he can do. I had gotten a call from Roger Waters, who many folks know is from Pink Floyd. And I had done an event with Roger Waters at the University of Massachusetts Amherst and had told him about Mr. B. And one day I had the honor of taking Roger Waters to Mr. B's house. And so they kind of stayed connected. And then the other day I got a call from Roger Waters telling me about a young musician in Turkey who actually is now a political prisoner. She was imprisoned by the Turkish government just for being a musician and just for politically conscious music against the Turkish government. And so Roger Waters wanted to send her a guitar because the Turkish authorities had literally smashed her guitar that she was using, as a musician, and she doesn't have much. And so Roger Waters from Pink Floyd wanted to send her a guitar. And he wanted the first person to sign that guitar to be Mr. Belafonte, who, by the way, this Turkish musician knew very well, although she's a really young person. And he called me and I was like, I don't know, bro. Like, Mr. B's kind of old and he doesn't really see very well right now. And I'm not sure, whatever. So Jules and I called Mr. Belafonte and his wife, Pam, and they were like, absolutely. I'm going to start practicing my signature now because I haven't done it in a while. The fact that he was ready to do something for this young political prisoner. And I'm talking about, this happened like 5 days ago. So I'm not talking about something that was 5 months ago or 5 years ago. This was something so recent. And so the spirit of Mr. B and his wanting to be of service to the most marginalized people, to incarcerated people, extends beyond the work here in the United States of America. And so Justice League for me was my real opening into really getting deep, deep, deep down with Black and brown communities, because I came from organizing in a very specific community in New York City. And so it was great, Carmen. We have also a lot of memories of, shutting down bridges in New York, direct action in New York City, really building with a lot of young people and folks that we've met along the way. And I was just telling Carmen the other day, like, the bottom line here is New York got movement people, we got organizers, people still do stuff, but I ain't gonna lie. Ever since, Carmen went to California and we kind of went national, New York is missing a little spice. So I'm looking forward to us getting really back down onto the ground in New York City and doing some of the work that we've done together for the last almost 10 years now.
Love and appreciate. What I love about this, and I don't know if others could see my screen, is that I'm seeing the OG Gathering folks and the OG Justice League members on here with the sprinkle of the in-betweeners and the new folks. I'm gonna give it up to my brother, my son, who actually is one of the original folks that brought the artistry into the Gathering and Justice League through his, spoken word, through his lyrics, through his music. And then ultimately we'll talk about, this collaboration that we had with one of our folks on here. But Mice, what's up, brother?
What's up, Queen? I'm driving, as you can see, trying to move. I was in the house for a minute, and then I was listening to the Gathering stories, and I just was like, I was supposed to be somewhere, but like 9 o'clock, I forgot and didn't even leave until 9 o'clock. So I had to make sure I stayed in tune.
Yeah, well, I would love to hear from you. I know you've done some rhymes that include Mr. B's words. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell folks, who see you, who know you as a co-founder of Until Freedom, and as a lyricist, as a rap artist, as a spoken word person, but you also, you did time, and I remember meeting or hearing about y'all. I'll tell a quick story. Jules and I and some other folks have driven up to Chicago for a conference with Amnesty International, and I met Tamika. I've always heard of Tamika, you know, but we were like, you know, we were part of Dot to Dot together. But Tamika had mentioned to us that she had somebody that she wanted us to work with, and that was you. And so when Tamika came on board with Justice League, she, you know, like Tamika does, right? We all know Tamika brings everybody with her. She felt it was important that you be a part of it and that you share your gifts with us. Tell us a little bit more about that. And then Tamika, are you able to join? Are you on?
I have on a bonnet and I'm not dressed yet. Give me a second. I'm listening. I'll be there.
Okay, I got you.
In true Tamika fashion. Yeah. You know, I had met Tamika at an event. We were doing a giveaway for Christmas in the projects in Harlem. And a friend of mine who had been connecting with things had partnered with Tamika to do that event. And long story short, we started connecting, talking about things. She had actually been, her cousin had lived in my building, so we had a history, and we just didn't know where we knew each other from. We started talking, and I started telling her what I do, and she started telling me what she did. And then, I had let her hear this piece that I had did for Trayvon Martin, and she just thought it was the dopest thing. And she was working with Sabrina Fortune at that time. She said, "I want Sabrina to hear this." And then I guess when she had met you, she said, "Yo, it's somebody I want you to work with. You'll be perfect, you know, going to detention centers and speaking to the youth in the jails. I think this would be a good look for you." You know, so she connected that. You know, I mean, I don't know where, we went to some restaurant. Yeah, I was having some event that she brought me to, and we sat down and we talked. And next thing you know, I was in the detention centers just doing the work. You know, and it's like, for me, you know, coming out of prison after doing 7 years in prison for a crime I actually didn't commit, you know, I didn't understand how to get involved with the movement. I never saw myself in the movement. I never thought my voice was valuable. I didn't think, you know, for some reason, I just had a certain belief of how you had to look or sound to be inside this movement. And, you know, and I think that was one of the things that intrigued me, you know, because when I looked at you and Tamika, y'all was like me, you know, y'all was people from the hood, you know, but y'all just had a different, and I had a different message too. So it was like, it really made sense. And I felt wanted. I felt like I fit into this team. So when I would go into the detention centers, you know, the way that I delivered my message, the kids gravitated to it. You embraced me. And I remember we were in the detention centers when the Mike Brown, no, not Mike Brown, when Eric Gardner happened. And I remember that we had just walked out of the detention center. Somebody texted you, and we seen the video. And you was like, she was like, no, they said that they wasn't going to indict or whatever. And you was like, we're going to do this march. And I remember we walked out of the detention center, called for the march. That night, I was on the highway, blocking the highway to Jersey, you know, and it was about 100,000 people outside. And I felt like this is where I belong, and, you know, and from then on, you know, just continuing to grow into my own leadership, my own understanding of how I fit into this movement, you know, meeting with Mr. B, sitting in the rooms with Mr. B and just listening to him. Because I've always been a person that just gravitates and listens to elders and just wants to get knowledge. So just grabbing up the energy and listening to what he said as a sponge, you know, I felt I wanted to pay homage of listening to the words he had said to me. And I wrote a spoken word, you know, saying, called, I don't have the right to do nothing, just based off all the times I had sat in a room and just listened to him talk and give us jewels and tell us about his movement with Dr. King and what inspired him and what he wanted to from us. Just paying attention, because that's always been the person I am. So, you know, and I wrote this for his birthday celebration in Apollo. you know, and I said it there. That was the first time I said it, and, you know, and he really received it well. So that was a blessing in itself, man. So just to be able to do things for people that you admire, people who've inspired you, to be able to utilize your talents and your gifts to give back, to be able to utilize your voice to fight for our people. You know, with the Gathering and Justice League was the first place that allowed me to do that. So, you know, forever grateful for that.
Carmen, you're on mute.
Over here talking to myself. I just want to say, man, just the memories of just listening to you all talk. Like I remember just Siri beginning his artistry, like you sharing your lyrics. We went into the detention center and we were teaching young people how to write bars. Remember, behind bars. Like it was all these like references to bars. And man, I haven't thought about that in so long. Like it's been a minute. But you know, I want to also, you know, allow folks to like talk amongst themselves. But before we do that, because I know we're waiting for our sister Tamika, I also want to bring in Michael Blake, who is another one of our fellow DOT members. And also, man, was kind of like our lifeline in the political world, right? When we were asking or demanding pieces of legislation to pass, like we were getting information, real hand information. We were also testifying to recommend criminal justice reforms that weren't necessarily, it didn't feel like it was happening in the past. And I remember, you know, feeling like, yo, that's my homie up there behind that microphone and that podium, but I can't really say what's up to him because, you know, we ain't supposed to be cool like that because I'm holding him accountable, you know? And, you know, you have been somebody, Blake, that has allowed us to play the inside outside game really well. So a lot of people think, right, like the Gathering for Justice, or not even the Gathering for Justice, but Justice League was like this, you know, we're out in the streets, we just protesting. But what people really don't know is that we were really strategizing on how to change the landscape of the justice system by having conversations with people like yourself, by having conversations with folks like Sepulveda, you know, and all the homies that you like actually introduce us to really talk about what it looked like to bring about change in New York State. So what's up? Let's give it up for our brother, Michael. And I know, again, we're waiting for our sister Tamika, but we all family here. We're all so interconnected. And I see our brother Angelo also joining, but what's up?
What up? What up? What up, Carmen? What's good? What's going on, everybody?
We out here just celebrating 16 years of the Gathering for Justice and also the legacy and the manifestation that was continued and is continuing through Justice League NYC in California.
No question. Well, peace to everybody, first of all. And love to you, Carmen. Love to everybody on the line. This is definitely a family reunion. I was enjoying just listening and how everyone has our own different stories and experiences and reflections. And I think the two that really have been resonating for me, that gathering, which to me, gathering is always powerful because anything that ends in ing means it's still moving, like it's still happening, right? You didn't just gather, right? So I always think that's important. And when we're all 1199, like there was something about that day, right? And those different meetings that were all happening that, you know, when you're in a space that is going to transform to be something bigger, even if you don't know what's happening that day. And I really do believe in this celebration of 16 years and beyond, that I think this past Saturday was a testimony and a testament of where things are going. I was saying to a few folks, you know, I wanted to be there in DC. I tested positive for COVID last week. I come out of quarantine tomorrow, so thank the Lord. I wanted to be there on Saturday, but something being home allowed me to appreciate, which is perfect for this conversation. I was able to watch both activities because we had TV crews for our network there, and I had my people just on the ground. And people don't remember routes on marches unless it's truly transformative marches, but they will remember the memorial.
That's right.
And I really do believe that Saturday was that reminder for anyone that's still confused, but also was that tipping point of like, we are here. Like, we're here. Like, this is not some big old conversation, is the gathering, is Justice League, is Until Freedom here? No, like we're here.
We're family.
So
we're here.
There's an understanding now that you got to do even more with that, right? Because a lot of times we can now get comfortable and complacent in the days after big days. Like Saturday was a major day. That should be celebrated. It should be magnified. 16 years, dope, amazing, celebrated, magnified. But it's in those quiet moments when shit really hits the fans when you need it. And so when Carmen was saying, and I appreciate that you clarified, when they were demanding, it wasn't asking, right? It was demanding, like, yo, I know you are a friend, but there are expectations that we have here. We've talked about it enough. I think the raise the age moment was the epitome of that. That was the epitome of that inside-outside game of, yo, here's what's going down. I need y'all here. 2.5 hours later, y'all were in Albany, and let that be that testimony. So I think the core point I want to say, in addition to saying thank you and that we love you and whatever you need, we got you, is this is just the next iteration of the movement. When people kept talking about Dr. King, as they should, let's not ignore it was Andy Young and others that were setting up economic boycotts.
That's right.
It was Julian Bond and others that were mobilizing. It was Dr. Dorothy. Dr. Dorothy Height is the reason why King gave the full speech in the first place, because the men were the ones that were trying to have him speak earlier. People don't want to give the full history of that, right? And so what we are doing now is just the next iteration. And so I'm just grateful to be on this journey with you. Grateful for everything you have been doing. But again, go back to what I said, gathering. Yeah. That means you have to keep bringing people to the table. You got to keep moving. You got to keep doing it cannot just stop in what it has been. An anniversary and a celebration is great, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't keep going.
That's right. And I appreciate you saying that because, just like Jasiri said, when the gathering brought folks together in the first year, One Hood was created, right? And it's the same thing, groups get created out of us connecting with one another. And it doesn't mean that you're separate from each other, right? Because y'all still family. When we showed up this week, and I just have to say it was one of the most healing experiences that I've had in a long time, because I was amongst people that actually loved me. I was amongst family. I was amongst, folks that I had organized with for quite some time, and folks that I'm building with even now, the future generations and now generations that we have on here. But I really want to appreciate you, Blake, because you were one of the folks that allowed us to hold you accountable, right? You were okay with us saying, we demand this, when we were like, in our speeches, lifting our fingers. You're like, that's right. That's right. You weren't taking it personal, like how some folks take it personal after they get into these positions. And the fact that we were getting intel, right, to allow us to pass things. I remember that day when we got the call to go to Albany, and we're like, wait, go where? Because we got to go to Flint in the morning, right? It was crazy. And I'm so glad that Angelo has joined us, because he was also instrumental in making sure that Raise the Age was passed. And so I'm going to hand it back to Lewis just so that he could bring in some of our other folks. And I'm wondering if our sister Tamika, you there yet, Tamika?
I'm here. I'm just doing stuff as always, but it's hold on guys, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. It's really good to be with y'all. Y'all know I multitask for a living. That's my thing that I do. But it's good to be here. I was just listening to everybody talking, and you all was saying some really, really powerful stuff. I mean, just listening. I mean, I think I've heard the stories of the gathering and how it came together so many times, but tonight I was really listening, and it just is like heartwarming just to hear everybody, especially CJ and Jasiri, talking about the very beginning, and just all the beautiful stories, and what has happened and how it transformed their lives. I mean, I think all of us have to always remember and be willing to talk about and to share of how the gathering at different places of our lives has helped us to grow. Because certainly it definitely helped me to find a place when I was sort of like just all over the place trying to figure out what to do next. And being able to organize, I mean, to activate my activism through this great and amazing organization. That was really, it was a really important place, space, and time for me. And then, being able to serve as a board member was also really important in my life. Taught me a lot and helped me to understand a different side of organizing, which is more about responsibility. So, I am just listening to everybody's story. I'm like, wow, yeah, thinking of my own stories, and I won't belabor folks with that. But I feel proud to be able to see where we all have grown to and what we've been able to do with our lives. And listening to my son's story, knowing that, I didn't have the right platform for him when I first met him, but I knew that he needed somewhere to go because he had so much in him that I could see at that time. And there were a lot of people who didn't believe. A lot of people tried to tell us, oh, why him, and whatever crazy things people said. But we believed, and we were like, no, we know that he has something special. His story is special. And, really, when we talk about serving impacted folks, what better than somebody like him who had a story. And so we stuck to it and kept helping him to build and helping him utilize his creativity. And, look at him now, like really sitting in board meetings and helping to strategize and organize. And just, I was listening to him today about some of the things that he's working on and things that I'm not even involved in. And I was like, wow, like you moving those projects along. And he's like, yep, I'm doing this, different things. And so it's just been a growth process. We've been able to fight for our people as a community. A lot of the language we use, a lot of the organizing strategies, we figured it out together. And so, Carmen, your leadership is really important. You lead in a way that more of us have to have just a little bit of, and there's so many people who just don't lead with such love and passion. And I think what you have instilled in so many, and especially listening to Luis speak tonight, I'm always just blown away by you and how intelligent, just how brilliant you are. But I can hear Carmen through you. So I know you're doing a real, real good job, Carm. So keep going, y'all.
I'm like, man, this like anniversary, y'all gonna make me cry, man.
No, it's true. It's true.
Now that I have kids.
No, it's all right. No, but listen, y'all, it's all love, and keep going. Keep going, everybody. That's what's important. Keep going.
And we love you, Tamika. We know that you made phone calls and brought resources to the Gathering for Justice when, like you said, nobody believed in us. Nobody wanted to invest. Nobody believed in us. You brought attention to us, and I think that was important. And you also had us understand that, we can't be part of movements that are invested in uplifting white supremacy with this like perfect image of leadership, right? And you reminded us of that every time somebody wanted to, you know, tell us that my son couldn't be part of the movement, right? And we would have to have these courageous conversations. And my son always came up to the table with saying like, look, I'm willing to learn, teach me, you know? And so I
sure did.
For being with us, for believing. And like I said, I gotta pass it on to you know, Lewis, because I've been having a party right here with all y'all. And Lewis is like, what's up? It was supposed to be co-moderated. But Lewis, I'm gonna hand it off to you so that you can engage our family here in a dope conversation as well.
Ain't nothing I love doing more than listening, so it's all good. I appreciate y'all, and thank you, Tamika, and thank you to all of those who was just sharing remarks. I mean, I think the stories in itself speak words on their own. But one thing that I wanted to sort of dig into was that piece just around the artivism, right, that the gathering has cultivated. And so I want to bring in my sister Karis LeVay, who's done some incredible work. And Mice, if you're still there, one record that really, I think, molded all of the culmination of artivism that the gathering has done was I Believe, which was actually unveiled at Gathering of the Youth. And we have Yasmin and Jasmine and other folks who were a part of that gathering in 2019. So I really just wanted to sort of go to that. But Karis, would love to hear from you. Just sort of what was your segue into this work? Talk about your experience and really coming into and stepping into your light as Karis in JL and Justice League, because I think that's a beautiful story that will be a perfect segue into some of what I want to talk about tonight.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. It is definitely like a family reunion. So many familiar faces here. I got introduced to Justice League by my Nana. You know, my Nana is the elder and the freedom fighter in my life, and she is and was very active in National Action Network. So, you know, she told me, I knew Tamika, I love Tamika because of our families. And she was like, listen, I'm old and you need to be cultivated. You need to be under the leadership. And I'm like, yeah, but Nana, you marched in Selma. Like, you're my leader. She's like, there's a generation that's next that you need to follow, and you need to go follow Carmen and Tamika. And she told me about Justice League, but I went through the whole process because Carmen had a process coming into Justice League. It wasn't, she took us through, like that year we got in, she wanted to know, you know, your background, what your interests were, all these different things, your politics. And I was like, wow, this woman must be something. And my Nana was like, that's it. You need to be molded under her. And I'm so grateful for it. When I came to Justice League, I was kind of like hiding some of myself. And I'm like, oh, I'm a researcher, you know, I have a political science background. So I came in as research, and I think it was 2018. We were having a meeting, and Carmen was like, yeah, we're having something going on. I'm like, oh, I can't, I'm going to the Grammys. And she was like, what you mean you going to the Grammys? And I'm like, I'm a ghostwriter. And she was like, wait, stop, pump the brakes. What you talking about? And I'm like, yeah, I kind of go by Karis and industry and stuff. And she was like, no. You are not showing up as your full self, and like put me on Front Street. And I'm over here trying to be all quiet. And she comes to me and my son and was like, we need a song for the movement. And I'm just like, listen, I'm a ghostwriter. I do this because I actually have imposter syndrome and don't want to be all up in front of the camera. And Carmen was like, it's time out for that. I need you and my son. She gets us on a text thread with Jackie Cruz and was like, tomorrow, go into the studio. We need this track. Like the movement, Mr. B said the movement needs a song for today. And we went in the studio, and in one session, like 1 8-hour session, we created I Believe from scratch, from building the chords. I sat with Carmen, And I said, well, what does the song of this generation, what does this sound like? And she's like, I hear big Baptist chords, like these big church Baptist chords, but when the beat drop, it should go hard like DMX. And I just froze and was like, what is she asking for? But I knew what she was asking for. And I went to my son, I said, we got to give a Baptist gospel feel, but it got to go hard like DMX. And he was just like, that Carmen. I was like, so let's do it. And we did. And the track starts off with Mr. B talking about the gathering. So how we tied it all together. It starts with him saying, the agenda that we need to find the agenda. And then we have the whole song, and it ends with Carmen from that gathering of the youth and her saying the agenda, we have found the agenda. And like, so it just ties in both generations. And she sent me a video of Mr. B listening to it. She didn't even give me a trigger warning. She just was like, hey, Mr. B, like, just boom. And I'm like, that's Harry Belafonte listening to my voice, like listening. She didn't know prompting. And now I'm sitting here biting my nails. And it was the most crazy thing. And he's just rocking to it. And I was like, I hope the DMX part, that beat drop, he understands it. And he's just bopping to it, bopping to it, bopping to it. And when I got a chance to meet him, he told me, he said, your artists we're the storytellers. And it is my duty to use my talent to tell the story of the movement, in music form. And him telling me that he loved the song, him and my grandmother both are like, this is the best you'll probably ever do. And I was like, okay, I don't even have to create music anymore. Like, that's it. I got their approval. But Carmen has brought out, she is an A1 mentor. A1 mentor. I aspire to be as humble as she is, and she just enters the room with love, and she gives so much of herself. And she told me, she's like, this is the platform that you need to use to give all of your gifts. Everyone has an assignment, everybody has a lane, and she's so selfless with her platform. I've never met anybody like her, and I'm just beyond happy to be part of this family.
Love you, sister. And that's right. Mr. B always reminds us of the words of his mentor, Paul Robeson, that artists are the gatekeepers of truth. And that's exactly what you are. You always remind me and folks in our movement to be our most authentic selves. And that's what you bring to this space. So I appreciate you. But I want to bring in our brother, Jumani, our New York City public advocate, before he has to run. You've done incredible work. I remember meeting you for the first time on the Brooklyn Bridge after organizing the Youth Over Guns March. And that's a story for another day, but just learning about your work after that day, learning and connecting with you through the work of Justice League in so many different spaces. At the time, you weren't our public advocate, and since you've done incredible work in this new role. And so just wanting to hear from you, from the work that you supported, making sure that lights were turned on and heat came back on at MDC, to ensuring that protesters are safe in the streets, to ensuring that we were good out while we were out all last summer as well. Really wanted to bring you in here. Just what's your experience working with the Gathering and Justice League? Any story or highlight you might want to share, but certainly wanted to sort of hear that experience and love that you bring to this work. I think more than any politician, you lead with humility as well. That's why we consider you our people. You show up for us, and we show up for you. And so really appreciate you, and great to have you on tonight.
Yo, thank you, man. Appreciate that. Peace and blessings, love and light to everybody. Happy born to the Justice League, 16 years. That's what's up. Thanks for that introduction, and I apologize that I do have to jump, but I just have to make sure I came on for a little bit. I appreciate those kind words, but it's really organizations like the Justice League and Until Freedom and all those, they give elected officials like me, like wings. They give us space to be, because it's very difficult in this field to be the type of elected official I wanted to be. What I think unites a lot of us on this call, and when doing this work that we really want to do, is people keep told us a lot, now we can't really do it it's not really your time. You can't really do it that way. Hold on, you have to do something this way. And we're like, nah, we need to do it the real way with the truth. And we can't really hide the truth. And we can't really, ease the door open. We have to bust the door open. The people who have been in power for a very long time, they keep going in and trying to emulate what they saw before, thinking it'll have a different result. And it's like, we're like, nah, those systems don't really work. And, when I came in, I was told I was too much of an activist, and I had to choose between being an activist, elected official, or an elected official. And I said, no, the best elected official are activists. And so I'm actually surprised I'm citywide. Like, I'll tell you the truth from the beginning, how I do it and how I speak. But I really think the time is now. I think people are looking for at least genuine people running. And sometimes it's hard, but the Justice League and organizations like that can help give courage to people who need a little extra courage, and create that space that people have to respond. Because sometimes it's like, okay, they might go away, be a little quiet, but now we're going to be really loud until you respond. We're going to force you to respond. And that's really important. I'm in the circles, Blake was in the circle, and he tell you in those rooms, quite honestly, sometimes people just trying to look for the easy way, and if they don't have to respond, they won't. And so it's just immensely important to have an organization like this out there making noise and not backing down. That's what's important. You have to have real people in there that's not going to sell out, who's not going to change course depending. That's really going to, whether it's popular or it's not, it's unpopular. If there's risks to it, we're going to do it because it's right for the people, and they're going to speak up. And so, I really appreciate being a part of that family and being able to look behind and see like there's a whole crew of folks. So we're not alone. Whether I'm elected or not elected, this is really above that and beyond that. So I just appreciate the opportunity to come celebrate this Born Day with Justice League.
Absolutely, 16 years, and I think you said it best. The time is ripe, and I appreciate you for being selfless, right? Oftentimes folks do get in and sell out, right? They forget about the movement that got them elected. They forget about the people who showed up for them. They forget about the communities who surrounded them with love. And you've never done that. You show up for us. You stick with our folks out on the streets. You bring it into the public advocate's office. You hold the mayor to it. You hold the governor to it. You hold everybody's feet under fire. And we love you for that. So I appreciate all the work you're doing. I want to bring in Michael Skonik. Skonik, are you here?
Peace and blessings, everybody. Thank you, man.
I am. Good evening.
Good evening, Skonik. Skonik, what's crazy was, I don't think Carmen knows this, but my mom, well, I was already a part of Justice League semi before this event, but you brought my mom, my brother, and myself out to this. And it's crazy that that happened in 2018, because we just finished organizing for voting rights in DC this weekend, but it was actually a Vote for Justice event that you were leading in 2018, and we were speaking out there. And I think Sean King was initially supposed to moderate the panel, but something happened, run a show changed, and Carmen ended up being the person who was moderating the panel with my mom, myself. And we were in the green room in the back, and that's where my mom and Carmen actually really got to connect. And I think I'm able to do this work because my mom trusts Carmen so much. I was like 16, 17, and Carmen's bringing me out to the streets, taking me to California, to summits, to conferences. And my mom was always hella overprotective over all of us, but she trusted Carmen because of how authentic she saw Carmen was in that space. And you facilitated some of that. And I feel like you do that for the movement so often. You bring people together, and I mean, no better person than you to convene folks in some of the most beautiful ways. But at the time, I didn't know you were chair of the board at the gathering, and about your work and your relationship with Carmen. I've come to learn that now. And so just really wanting to hear from you. You're sort of coming to meet Carmen, the work that you've done, your work gathering people, because I feel like that's what you do best. Your top tier on putting events together, putting conferences together. Some of the most beautiful experiences I've been a part of were things that were organized by you. And so just excited to have you on tonight, and really wanted to hear from you.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I'll keep them brief. As an older person, I've known Carmen for a long time, and decade plus. So I saw the early days of the gathering and the Justice League, and always offered my support. I'm humbled to serve as the chair of the board, but really it's just a cheerleader of the organization and all of you who are doing the incredible work on the ground and on the front lines. I watched, the live stream over the weekend. As I've gotten older and have a child who demands more and more time of his father on the weekends, I sometimes can't get to the things I want to go to or I used to go to when I was younger, but I certainly watched it and continue just to be impressed by the Justice League, by the gathering, by Until Freedoms. And, as Jumani said, so many organizations represented, my dear long friend, Michael Blake, doing the work on the ground. So I am a proud cheerleader. I will take a call at any time from Carmen Perez when she needs anything from me, and certainly, other folks on this Zoom tonight as well. But I've watched it grow, and it's in a beautiful place because it's also in the hands of you and young people, right? And you all have taken us, I think, to the next phase of the organization, which was certainly Mr. Belafonte's intent, in the early days of starting this, where the young people would lead this. And Carmen certainly at that time as a leader, but she has done such an amazing job as a mentor, as a femtor to so many people, including me. But also making sure that young people are always at the front and always at the table. And you all have done such an amazing job. So I'm proud to be a supporter of the organization and a cheerleader. And I am certainly proud of 16 years of incredible work. There's obviously 16 more years to go. We are nowhere near finished of the work that needs to get done. But this is a moment to commend the work and make sure that those who are doing it every single day, are on the front lines, know that we appreciate you, we love you, and we're here for you, and we will support you until the very end.
I appreciate you. And Carmen, before I go into that, sort of, I think it's going to create the perfect segue just to talk about some of the work that we're doing in the 16 more years to come as we celebrate our Sweet 16. Just wanted to hear from you about your experience and all the energy you've put into investing into folks like me. I think Skone covered it, and just the way in which even Karis talked about what you brought to her and being that A1 mentor, as folks are dropping in the chat. That's really what you represent. That's what you bring. That's the leadership style that you really exemplify at the gathering and exemplify in the movement that so many folks want to learn from. And so, Carmen, just want to bring you back in here for a second before we move on.
I think I'm the youngest of 5, right? I grew up just kind of inheriting the things that my older siblings owned or had, as well as, I played basketball on a team of starting 5. And I use a lot of basketball references, right? I believe that, when you build a solid team, that you could win championships. But not only do I need my colleague on the right or on the left or that power forward or the shooting guard, I also need my bench, right, to relieve me so that I could rest and so that I could replenish myself, so I could go back into the game and go hard. And so you always need a strong bench. And sometimes you need your bench to finish the game. And so it's always about cultivating others, because you never know when you're going to be taken out the game, right? And I also believe, I think a realization for me at a very young age is that life was too short. You never knew when, your life could be taken. And I learned that when Patricia was killed. Never in my life did I navigate the world before losing her in that way. But I navigated knowing that you could, I didn't want to leave this world with all the knowledge or all the relationships. And so I wanted to share them. I think that's what, and it's what you see in Justice League, right? And I know my brother Angelo is back. But like, I remember being, somebody who feels that I can't win unless I bring others to also be part of that victory lap. And I remember being somebody in New York who was new to the scene. I was, I think, a little bit naive, would you say, Angelo? Because I remember going to Angelo. Well, there was this tension, this conversation that was happening on Instagram before Instagram was popping with Marvin Being, where Marvin was like, yo, like, is Carmen even directly impacted? Why does she work with juveniles, all this stuff, right? And I was like, hey, I would love to talk to you. I would love to meet with you. I would love to build with you. But then I said to Angelo, yo, Angelo, like, I feel like we got to bring our generation together, because oftentimes we're the ones that are doing the work and really don't get acknowledged. But also, how do we combine our resources? And Angelo was like, look, folks are doing that, right? And it hasn't really manifested into anything. So like, shit, like, I'm down, let's do it. But also, like, good luck. Like, and so we had a meeting, right? How many conversations did we have, Angelo?
Probably like 4 or 5.
And so at some point, Angelo was like, look, I'm just gonna keep it real with you, Carmen. Like, because I wanted so much to bring people together, right? It's my nature. But he, at some point, kind of gave me a reality check. And but somehow, Angelo, it stuck, right? Like, it stuck. And so I want to hear, I want folks to hear from you about like what that first meeting was like. We also put together, I think, our first Growing Up Lockdown with like 800 people, 200 presenters. But then we hit the streets. But, so I want to introduce Angelo, because as you talk about, like, investing in others, I was always told you're only as good as your weakest link, right? And in basketball, like, you rely on others to win the game, and you always got to pass the rock, right? Knowing that you have a coach, but it's really about the teamwork. And for me, Marvin and Angelo at the time were my team to bring others along to really kind of win this championship that we were trying to win in juvenile justice. And so I'm passing the rock to you.
It seems like 100 years ago that it happened, but it wasn't that long ago. It was some time ago. And, when I reflect on it and I think about it, I feel like we were naive, and we were also fearless.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you know too much, it's no good. So being a bit naive and green and fearless and just wanting to really create change allowed us to do something that most people would have looked at and said, it can't happen. If you look at it from a rational or logical perspective, they would have said, don't even try, you're wasting your time.
Yeah.
We said that our thoughts, our concerns, what we believed in mattered. And we not only did we say that, we felt like the thoughts and concerns of our peers mattered too. And we wanted to bring our peers together because we believed that we could truly create change. And when I think about how we started and I think about where we are now, I always think about the proverb, one tree, many roots, one tree, many branches. And I think that's exactly what we epitomize. That's exactly what the movement is supposed to epitomize. It's exactly what the idea of gathering stand for, right? It's how do you pull back together sometimes that which spreads apart or seems disconnected? How do you remember the ways in which you're interconnected? And I think that's what we did. And the beautiful thing about it was that we didn't only do it for ourselves, but we did it for folks all around us and our peers in the movement. And we spent so much time. It was such a great time. We spent so much time with each other, disagreeing, agreeing, arguing, discussing ideology and just figuring things out. And I think for all of us, it helped us grow. It helped us become more firm in who we are. But I think it also helped us realize that you will never have all the answers.
That's right.
And one of my other kind of favorite movement sayings is that multiple truths can exist at the same time.
That's right.
And I think we all represent that. We all represent multiple truths. And the degree to which, as the gathering has done, as Justice League has done, the degree to which we're able to pull many of those truths together are really the degree to which not only will we transform our lives, but to the degree to which we'll transform the world. And that's the thing that really holds true and motivates me. I think even now, it's like, not only did we do that, did we build movement, we constantly kind of grew new movement leaders, all the folks who are on the call, but we also kind of like had families. So there's children around who who are also witnessing this. And I say it all the time that this generation, the young people who are being born during and witnessing and watching and being a part of this social and global uprising are going to be different from us and different from every generation before us. I believe that, to some degree, they're hyper aware of what's going on. And that hyper awareness is going to be necessary with regard to laying the foundation of the new world that we need. And I think the new world that our ancestors and that we truly desire. So again, like many people have said, I'm just happy to be a part of this family reunion, to share some of the history and just to share space with all of you. It's always, 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 always a pleasure. And it's something we should never take for granted. So I love you all.
Yeah, we love you too, Angelo. There were some special moments, some drives to DC. I think we got videos where like you, Tamika, my son's like mouth and was open. Like, we have some good footage, and we got to give it up to our folks that followed us as well. But we did have a lot of debates. Good conversations. There were moments where we also were like, look, we don't mess with y'all. Like, there was turn up times. What I love about this family is that all of who we are can show up, even the ugly, and we still love each other, right?
Yes.
And I really appreciate that about all of you on here. And again, I just feel I need to say that because sometimes the movement feels so like whitewashed, like you have to be pure in order to be part of something. And like, if I think about my family, like none of these movement folks would even mess with my family, right? Like it's kind of like, I have the language, but for some reason, because there's so much love here, it's not even coming. But I love that you brought that up, because I certainly remember the ugly showing up in the beginning stages of the Gathering for Justice, right? It's what made the gathering what it was. And it certainly continued. And the fact that, this conversation is called, the generations of generations, because there's so many of us from different walks of life that can be in this space as our whole selves.
Right.
And so, Louis, I'm gonna pass it on to you again, but I just, I love y'all. This is, I was only supposed to be here for an hour. I told Louis earlier, like, Louis, I got kids, like I'm tired, like I may just have to tap out, like it ain't the same like how we used to be rolling till 2, 3 in the morning, Angelo, they'd kick us out of the office.
Yep.
But I'm in it. Like, this is what feeds my soul. And I'm just so glad to be part of this conversation with y'all.
Hey, Carmen.
Yeah.
I know you guys have a process and all that. I just want to say this. Thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you to Mr. Belafonte. Thank you to Malia. Thank you to all the people that have come and gone, but have left footprints and imprints and downloads. Because some of us get to the national stage and platform, but some of us have a responsibility to hold down the local. And so I'm just thankful for all the things that I learned in the gathering for the season that I was intensely involved, but never disconnected. even anywhere in the last 16 years. I know I could pick up and call you in between labor pains if I really needed to get love or support. And I mean that sincerely, and so many others. I've served as a councilman for 13 years. And I know many of the things that I had the courage to say, do, and not say and do was because of the connection and exposure to people that I met through the gathering. I'm I was raised in an old school church, apostolic, Pentecostal, speaking tongues and everything else is sin in environment. But learning how to sit through a sweat lodge ceremony, understanding the significance of sage and the purifying of atmospheres broadened me, because now I'm a pastor. And so I have a broader perspective of how to serve the world in the offices that I am. Not always on the national stage. Sure, I've done some stuff, but when the rubber meets the road, I just want to say again, thank you, Mr. B, and so many others. I love you. I love you all, my little brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, cousins, and I'm speechless. Anything that I can do, I'm not hard to find if you're really looking for me. But I just want to give that love, give that support, and give back, so much that was given to me. Mr. B is a grandfather, and I want to be able to be something like that to someone else in the future. So I love y'all. Peace.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Much love. That really helped contextualize so much of what I wanted to talk about. I think oftentimes when we talk about our movements, we disconnect it from reality, right? It's why, like Carmen said, so many of our family members, the way in which they talk is impalatable to even not just the powers that be, but even people in our own spaces, right? And oftentimes I have dream sessions with my sisters, Jasmine, Chris, Karis, Yasmin, Ashley, all these folks are on the line. And we talk about where we need to be and where we are, right? The disconnect between that, how we're going to forge it. We really build together. But really, what I feel like I just picked up from what part of it, what Angelo said, and part of what Curtis just shared is the need to be connected to one another, right? The need to share that love, that respect for one another, the need to co-create spaces with one another. Oh, look at the babies. The need to co-create spaces with one another. And oftentimes we lose the sense of family, we lose the sense of movement building when we become that, right? When we start talking and acting like the folks who we're fighting against, when we start using the same words and systems and things that we initially said we were tearing down, right? And so that's a key part of what we're bringing to this space. And so many of you all remind me, and especially you, Jasmine, working with young folks who are still on the streets, right? Those are the folks that we need to pull it. Working with young folks who need the resources. Part of what we've been doing for the past year through our community relief fund was really just bringing dollars to young people who just got out of jail, young people who need to put food on the table. Those systems of mutual aid, those systems of caring for one another are the systems that uphold, not carceral systems that spit back at our people the things that were down, but internally we're not really doing that. And so just want to appreciate you all, appreciate the foundation that you've laid for us, appreciate the lessons and mentorship that you all have gave, and pull in my big sister, Chris, because Chris, you in so many ways brought me to this space. I don't know if I'd be on staff and doing this work as knee deep as I am if it wasn't for you. I remember we were at a Justice League meeting. Carmen's like, we need a Justice League coordinator, someone to help us get our shit together this summer at least. He was like, we need an intern. And Chris is like, Lewis would be great. And I'm like, what Lewis you talking about? Because I know it ain't me. Because I was like a sophomore in high school. I'm like, I got too much shit going on. I was in band. I was in sports at the time. So I'm like, I know she's not talking about me. But she was talking about me. And she pulled me in a really intentional way. And since I've really had the honor of working with such incredible people, learning from such incredible people. I've had the honor of being the fly on the wall while you all had your dream sessions, while you all mapped and planned some of the most bold and transformative actions that not just New York, but our country has seen. And so, Chris, want to pull you in here just to talk. We're celebrating, so just want to keep it casual, sis.
Feliz cumpleaños. Yes. No, man, it's the journey of being in the gathering, man. First of all, Luis, we always saw you. You're like you've always been like this light in the room, and you was always willing to work, and you just fed, it was like you were a sponge and you just fed off of us. And you were like, it just made sense. It was like, well, a young person, you know, Carmen always taught us is like, you have to keep passing the baton. And her favorite line is, the children is not like, the young people are not just our future, they're our present, and we have to be able to provide that table for them as well. And you were the perfect example, which now you running stuff, Luis. And there was moments where I had to steal you too, because I was not officially a staff member of the Gathering for Justice. But you know, my journey here is just, I've grown so much to the point where I always tell people my story meeting Carmen. And it's like, when I had the first opportunity to meet Carmen, to meet all these activists and these organizers, I've never been in a room that actually knew how to activate organizers across the country, and specifically a Latina. It was like so inspiring. Yeah, she said puede. It was so inspiring. But I always tell people, Carmen gave me the formula to start good trouble in dismantling whitewash organizations, because it was the key words that she has said in part of Growing Up Lockdown, because that's when I first met Carmen. Man, this was years ago, was, you have the doctorates to your community. You are experiencing, you should be at the table no matter who you are, no matter what your background is. And I was like, Carmen had installed those words, and it just changed my career. And it made me start good trouble. And I just think about the journey of like, well, now I gotta follow her, because she's just, you know, putting this light into me, this fire. And I finally got to meet Carmen, and she was just like, just join Justice League. And I was like, I don't know.
It's that simple.
It was not simple. It was not simple.
Okay, maybe not your cohort.
Yeah, it was not simple. Karis can attest to this. But
boot camp.
Right, it was boot camp. I don't think people understand what we had to go through.
We had to vet people after a certain situation.
For sure.
Yeah. So y'all had to deal with that process.
And it was very interesting, because we had no idea. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I was in the same cohort as Karis, which was very funny, because when I first met Karis, we both like hit it off automatically. And everyone thought that we were already in Justice League, and we're like, no, we're getting interviewed too. Like, we just confident because we know we got this. And then it became, you know, became the journey of Thelma and Louise after that. But man, I'm gonna wrap this up and just say, Carmen, I don't think you get enough flowers, like, at all. And I want you to know that I want to give you, if I had 1 billion flowers to give you, I would give them to you. And I think everyone could attest is that you have a different leadership style, and you have so much heart, and you give your all, and you've always given your platform for others to shine and to lead. And it's just so rare. And I just want to be able to provide those flowers to you, because I'm gonna be speaking about you until you're a little viejita. You know, your legacy will will forever continue as long as I'm alive. So I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your leadership style. And I'm gonna pass it back to you, Luis.
Oh, that was so beautiful. I plus one all of that. And another sister, Jasmine, who has been doing incredible work out in California, that I want to bring into this conversation. But so much of like our work, I got distracted because I saw the header to an email notification on my computer that said that 40,000 children had been stopped by the police in the last 2 years, a recent report that just came out. And I think it contextualizes just even part of this conversation so much, because while we're being told that things like stop and frisk no longer exist, we still see our children being harassed, right? In schools, out of schools. And Jasmine has done some of the most transformative work to get police out of schools. She's led the effort in Stockton and really the country, has helped lay the foundation, has taught me so much. And so, Jasmine, really wanting to hear from you, both personally, your experience coming to the gathering, what that was like. I remember meeting you for the first time during our Justice League retreat. I think it was February 2019. When I first met you in person, I had heard of you and talked with you over the phone for some time. But yeah, I've learned so much from you. You're like an incredible organizer. You've taught me so much, but also have showed me skills and things that folks don't typically share. Folks gatekeep in our spaces. And so I want to appreciate you, give you some love and big you up tonight. But yeah, I really wanted to hear from you, Jasmine.
Well, thank you, Lewis. Lewis is just dropping it down for everybody. So I'm so grateful for you. I always tell people Lewis is our boss as well. But first of all, just
right. I've been saying that.
Yes. It's just been, before I say anything, I mean, just hearing the past 16 years of the organization. I was texting our group chat like, yo, this is what we needed. Sometimes we get so caught up in the work and forget all of the powerful milestones that we've made, as an organization. And, I'm like, dang, I'm like 2 years old, basically, in this organization. There's people who've been here 16, 15, 14 plus years. And it's just an incredible honor to be a part of this organization, to serve in this organization. I would have never imagined, being a part of something like this. I always imagined myself staying in Stockton and just, working and serving in my community, and didn't really see life beyond, that. I knew that I wanted to serve people, but it was through the gathering, through Carmen, and through the leadership and folks cultivating us that really showed us that we can touch our people all across in many different spaces, and that there's a calling for all of us to really continue to do this work. And it was through the gathering that allowed me to feel like I can still serve my community back at home, but really touch folks across the state of California. And that we really needed to sort of incubate what was happening in New York in California. I remember hearing the great work and seeing the great work that was happening and saying, why don't we have this in California? And when Carmen offered that we would be able to be a part of building this, I was, no lie, really like nervous. I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we could ever do what New York did. And maybe we would do it in a different way. But just the honor to continue to try to build what is happening, to work with folks like Ashley and Michelle for Justice for Sean Monterosa, to build campaigns to close youth prisons across the state of California. We did that. Now working to, remove barriers for young people. I mean, you're talking about one of the largest states in the country where we see mass incarceration continue to build for young people. And so there's so much happening. It's just been such an incredible journey, and to be in alignment with an organization's mission that is, rooted in ending a system that has harmed young people for decades and has been rooted in white supremacy and other systems. It's really a dream to be able to be a part of an organization that is about liberating young people like Yasmin and Ashley and Michelle and other folks who are on our fellowship. So many great things happening, but Yeah, thank you, Lewis. Thank you, Carmen, for the honor of being able to celebrate the Sweet 16 of the gathering, to be able to serve. I look forward to the many, many more years of us celebrating the great accomplishments that this organization will do. And it's always been centered in people. It's never really been about the accolades. It's always been about, are we serving our people? Are we doing it with intention? Are we bringing people to the table? When we are talking about these issues, who's at the table? How do we continue to expand the table? Make sure we center those who are directly impacted, closest to the issues, because we know that we all have the solutions and answers. And that's what I love about this organization. It's always been about the people directly. And like you said, you know, if we didn't have the funds, Carmen always says that we made things out of rice and beans. Like we were feeding our people, doing what we have to do, but we knew that those basic things were what was going to change the lives of our communities and really change the ways that people interacted or thought of us. And so, yeah, I'm gonna stop. I know we've been at it all night, but just so incredibly honored to serve with the gathering and be here tonight.
I love you, Jasmine. Thank you. And appreciate your leadership. And you started it, so I'm going to get into it right now. Troublemakers for Liberation, our new core program that I'm so privileged and honored to have helped co-create and now serve as co-facilitator for. We have Ashley, I think Michelle might be somewhere there in the background. Yasmin. Yasmin, let's start with you, because the interesting thing is Yasmin came to our gathering of the youth in 2019. And afterwards I was like, yo, what's up, sis? Like, you need to be a JL member. Because what Carmen taught me was like, we recruit. We could be anywhere. We had dinner. We recruiting the server. Like, we recruiting people because we need everyday people to show up for everyday people issues, right? It's those folks closest to the pain, closest to the trauma, that are also closest to the power, that have the solutions to the issues that we want to address. And I remember Yasmin, I facilitated, we were doing World Cafe at the conference and at the National Black Theater in Harlem. One of the best experiences I've had, and was also privileged to help organize that. And Yasmin had shared a story just about her experience in schools. I was like, yo, this sister has a powerful story. She's doing the work, she's showing up, she's here. Like, she's exactly who we need. And she got back to me. She's like, I'd love to, but I'm swamped with school and I don't really have the time. And then she turned around and now she's leading and organizing and she's a part of the team. And so just want to hear from you. What was your experience at Gathering of the Youth? What really locked you in with the gathering? And just talk about the fellowship, because I know y'all had a lot to share about it when we were together just this past weekend in DC. And folks don't know, but I think the beautiful and coincidental thing is that this is the first year of our fellowship. It's a pilot program. And coincidentally, but yeah, probably in alignment with our greater purpose, we have 16 fellows who are doing incredible work around the country. And so cheers to 16 fellows on our 16th year. Excited to have 20 fellows plus on our 20th year and dreaming about 30 fellows at our 30th year. But wanted to hear from you right now, and really what brings you to the gathering, and any words you might want to share tonight.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity and for just getting to know everyone and to be a part of this amazing family. And kind of speaking on what Lewis said, like at the youth conference like 2 years ago, I remember just being there and kind of acting as like a fly on the wall, as Carmen and Lewis, you guys were saying at the beginning. And I just remember loving the environment and the community so much that like I showed up all 3 days, although it was like a 2-hour commute to Harlem from my house, and it was just something drew me to the organization. And unfortunately, like during my senior year, a lot was happening and I couldn't be involved more. But then when I saw the opportunity for the fellowship, I was like, I have to be involved in this like amazing organization. And to me, I think the one thing that always stood out is just how like the gathering kind of embodies the message of human rights and just focuses on humans as humans with feelings and emotions, with struggles, with love, and just everything everything. And to me, that's so important. And without it, I think there is no movement. And I think I love how like the gathering really just focuses on the essence of the movement, and how like to me it's like you can't fire your body and go out in the streets and do all these actions without firing your soul. And to me, the gathering kind of fires both my soul and my body, which is why it resonates with me so much, and why it's like a family, because not only does it allow me to be comfortable and show up as my full self, but it also allows me to like grow and be inspired. And like the fellowship, I absolutely love it. Like I wish we could have meetings every single day, but it's so inspiring listening to all the other youth and just like really focusing on how intergenerational, intersectional like this movement is. And even like I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Belafonte, but like through you guys and how you're always talking about him and his story and just the essence of him, and I just feel like I know him although I don't. And I think like that's just so amazing how like his wisdom has been passed down and how that empowers us, and just like hearing everyone speak, and even Carmen, and being like in community with everyone is just so inspiring to me. And just the idea of like solidarity, radical love and everything. And it's just, I absolutely love everything about the gathering, and I'm incredibly grateful to be a part of the fellowship. Yeah, I'll pass it back to you, Louis.
Listen. I want y'all to know that when I texted Yasmin a few hours ago asking her to be on this program, I'm like, you have to be on this because I have a story to tell with you. She's talking about I don't know, I don't like to public speak. And since you just lit my soul on fire, I mean, I needed that. So I appreciate you.
Bars. What are you talking about? Those were bars. I was like, is she flowing right now?
You're right. Over here talking about she don't public speak. Well, you better teach me how to public speak. Listen, y'all are incredible. I mean, I'm again, it's a celebration. So I'm so excited to have you all on tonight. And we can't wrap up tonight's program without having my sisters in the movement. I mean, it was instant click. The way you all showed up for the Cole family in Wisconsin. I remember seeing you all in the hotel lobby, and I just like ran to hug you all. And I'm like, you guys are tiny. I feel like you were like both little minions. I was like hugging you all. Just wanted to show you all so much love, because I remember being in your space, right? I could never say that I experienced the pain and the trauma that you all did, because losing someone to such a tragic act of violence isn't something that I endured, but being in the space as an impacted family for a while taught me a lot. And we've had the chance to go in depth at dinners and our little off conversations. I feel like we're best friends. When we want to be, we're clicking and vibing whenever we're together, which is the beauty about our relationships and the things that come out of the gathering. But the way in which you all were selfless and showed up for one another while enduring that pain, while still experiencing that trauma, just months after such a tragic loss, you all were out there showing love, making sure that another family who had experienced it was supported and had the things that they need, was just one of the most selfless things I've ever seen. I mean, it reminded me of so much of my mom. My mom does so much, and I wish I could pull her on this program. She's busy right now, but she talks so much about showing up for people, right? Showing up for the community. Oftentimes I'm like, give me your phone, put it away, because she's always a click away for anyone. I mean, when folks talk about that they can call Carmen at any time of the night and they know that Carmen will pick up, that's my mom for so many folks. And I see that in you all. And as Carmen has brought you all to this space and had the privilege of being your fellow mentee, learning from Carmen together, I see so much of her in you all. I see so much of my mom in you all. I see so much of myself in you all. And so just want to say that I love you all. I appreciate you all and all that you bring to the space, but really want you all to just share that transaction, that transformative moment of DM exchange that you all had with Carmen that eventually brought you into the gathering in Justice League. I've heard this story several times, and I feel like it's the epitome of what brings us together. I mean, even the way CJ, who was on earlier, was like, Carmen hit him in the DM, made sure he was going to be on this program. We connect with one another by any means possible, just to make sure that we're good and we're showing up for one another. And so Want to hear from you all. Tell your story. Give us some light. Give us some love.
Sorry if you hear Baby J and Baby Dom.
He could talk too. He could talk too. That's generations right there. They're gonna be leading us in 5 years.
Well, for us, well, but I'll pass it to Michelle because Michelle was the one who was talking to Carmen on Instagram, and Carmen was like, "Yo, I'm hella connected to y'all. Like, I'm posting about your brother, and like right after we had lost our brother, and so." Michelle exchanged phone numbers and we didn't hear back for a while. And we're like, okay, maybe she's just busy, whatever, something happened. And she tapped back in like a couple of weeks afterwards. And she was like, I've been texting the wrong number this entire time. Can you please send me the right number? And so Michelle finally sent her the right number. And I remember hopping on a Zoom later on that week. Hey, you guys have to share. Sorry. Yeah, so we exchanged phone numbers, and then after that, we scheduled a Zoom call, and then after that, a couple weeks, not even a week, couple weeks, it was like the next week, we had another follow-up, and she was like, do you guys want to be part of JL California? And we're like, yeah, sure. We didn't even know what that meant, but we're like, okay, but we've just took a leap of faith, and honestly, like, we're just eternally grateful and blessed that God aligned us all together, and that Carmen was really able to pull up for us and give us a bunch of resources through the gathering Justice League California. Like, it's just a blessing because now it just feels like we're all family. And then through Justice League calls on Mondays and everything for like a whole couple months, we all didn't know each other in person, but we still felt like a family. And then when we finally all got reunited, it really just felt like family. It didn't feel like I was meeting you all for the first time. Like, I wasn't meeting Carmen in person barely in June, like, we just been tied in, and I think I don't know if we would be this far ahead in our brother's fight for justice had it not been if we had the support from the gathering, because I say this all the time, we could be lost in the sauce, but I'm grateful that Carmen stepped in and really just extended her hand and really helped us. So I'll leave it at that because los chiquillos andan gritando, they want their cocoa melon, so I'll pass it back to you, Luis.
Not the cocoa melon. Listen, that be having these kids gripped. But thank you so much, Ashley, and really, really want to show love and appreciation to you all. I mean, you both bring so much to the space. Even as you shared that experience of like, I don't know what JL California is, but I'm gonna say yes, take that leap of faith. It's so, I mean, it reminds me of my experience coming into this space. And sometimes we need to take that leap of faith. Bria didn't make it tonight, but Bria posted something earlier. Bria Baker, who is my sister, my movement sister, Carmen's mentee. She's now on the board of the gathering. She shared a post of her bungee jumping, which she actually showed me that video when we were in Jamaica together recently. And as I read her caption and watched the video again tonight, it reminded me of like even things that I've been holding myself back from. And what you all just said around taking that leap is what I want to encourage everyone to do tonight. Take a leap of faith when you have to, show up for one another when you have to, do the work when you're called to do it. Oftentimes we don't understand things, and it's because we're not supposed to. Things are hidden in message, things are hidden in power, things are hidden in love in our spaces intentionally. And I'm a deeply spiritual person. I was raised in the church, not as often as a churchgoer now, but I still feel spiritually connected in so many meaningful ways. But just want to say that I love everyone who joined tonight's program. And while we have, before we wrap up, and while we still have Curtis Jones, I was wondering if you might want to just share some words of advice to some of the new gathering folks as we prepare for our next 16 years. And the many more years to come. We're wanting to learn from you all. I think what we've heard and what we've been grounded in by Mr. B and so many other amazing elders is the fact that we are abundant when we're in generations, right? We're abundant when we're intersectional, intergenerational, intercultural. We bring the flavor, we bring the rice and beans, we bring the pot, like we bring it all when we show up for one another, very much potluck style. whether it's around our movements or around our families. It all feels the same oftentimes. And I share those words while we were together in DC recently because I truly feel that way. I feel at home when I'm at the gathering. I feel at home with you all. I see you all as my brothers, sisters, Carmen as my second mother. My mom calls her my second mom. And so just want to lift that and even as you just said, I mean, I met you for the first time on this program tonight, Curtis Jones, but as you shared the fact that Mr. B said that he take on that role as your grandfather, and you really saw that in him, and trusted him with that vulnerable that vulnerable interaction. It reminded me of what we still create in the gathering, what we still are carrying on, and the legacy that we've been entrusted with. And so just wanted to hear from you before the end of the program, any words of advice that you might have for myself and the amazing young leaders on this call tonight.
First of all, for the opportunity to share a little bit, I'm honored. I'm all of you, I'll be Googling you that I have not already before I go to bed tonight. So if you get some weird old guy friending you or trying to connect with you, it's me. So don't be afraid. What I would say is what many have said to me, my elders, including Mr. B and so many others that are nameless on the national stage. One, be intensely courageous. And even sometimes you got to scare yourself, because we all gangster. We straight hood, whatever your hood is, and there ain't much outside of us that can scare us. We've been through some things, we've had some experiences, and there ain't a whole lot that can, make us afraid. But when we can make ourselves a little nervous, that means we're pushing an envelope more than any certain situation can. So I challenge us to all do that. There's a mantra that I share at our ministry, and I try to make it a part of my life. And actually, I don't I'm telling myself I'm a pastor, but I just got this new tattoo in the last couple months, and part of it, and it's got an Om symbol for meditation, a lotus flower, and a mountain with waterfall, but at the bottom, the mantra is let it flow effortlessly. And I'm big on acronyms. So life, L-I-F-E, let it flow effortlessly. The good times, enjoy them, but let them go because there's greater to come. The difficult times, they come, learn from them, learn from them, be taught by them, but let them go. Because anything that you hold on to longer than you should, even though it was a blessing when it came, it can become a curse if you let it stay too long. So I offer that to you as well. And give away. You can't, if you want more of something, you have to have what you have of that. You have to give it away. So there's a biblical adage that says, if you want friends, you got to be friendly. You want justice, you got to serve justice in the spaces where you have authority and auspices in your sphere of influence. Every seed that is sown will reproduce. And that's important to know, but even more important to know, and I'll wrap up because I'm a preacher and a politician, so I could go on and on and on and on and on and on. But whatever you sow, what is produced from it was always greater than what you sowed. So if you sow a little bad attitude, don't be surprised when 8 people give you attitude, because the seed you sow will come back to you greater than what you invested or what you sowed. So when you sow love, when you sow concern, when you sow on a local level, when you sow on what seems to be in a minute level, I want to offer this to you to know that it's going to come back greater than what you invested. So there's nothing too small and there's nothing too big. It's what you have to give. And the final thing, there's another, because I'm a pastor, I'm gonna say this. We already late anyway. Y'all ain't where y'all, a lot of y'all on the West Coast, it's just late over here, my house. Jesus was talking to his disciples, and they had all these people out, and the story goes, and this is good no matter what faith system you aspire to or none. This is a universal principle that's true and around leadership. He said there were thousands of people according to the story. And his 12 closest leaders came to him and said, hey, we've been having these people out here in the desert for hours. They haven't eaten. Let them go into the cities and buy some food so, so they don't get hangry and come hang us, right? And so Jesus said, no, they don't have to depart. And he asked them a question. What do you have? He asked those that were in leadership with him, working, doing the work, grinding, late nights, fighting on the floor, borrowing gas money, whatever it is. He said, what do you have to give? And they said, man, we only got 7 loaves. And he looked at him and said, give it to me. Why that's important? Because whatever you have, you got to give it, because it's a seed and it will reproduce greater. So I want to offer this to you as young leaders, and I promise my last final is give what it is you have, because if it's what you have, it's enough. You can't compare yourself to Carmen. I want to be like Carmen when I grow up too. But there's some things that Carmen has that I don't have, but I can give you what I've got. And so don't look for other people to answer the question. Be the answer to the question. Even when you're the question, even when you don't know, even when you're confused, give what you have. Because when you give yours, and then Yasmin gives hers, and then Jasmine gives hers, and Karis gives hers, and Carmen and Lewis and Michael and everyone when we all give ours, the culmination of that story is that everyone ate and there were 12 baskets left over. When you give your little bit with mine, we all end up fed and with abundance to move into the next season. I love you all. I pray that was a blessing. Anything I can do, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. I'll put my phone number in the chat. Anything I can do to serve as your big brother or uncle, depending on how old you are, maybe I could be a dad age. It's my honor to do that. So give what it is you have. The world has need of you.
I love that. Pastor Jones, Pastor Curtis, my brother, I was trying to find the words as to why I started Justice League. And it was because I believed if you had rice and somebody had beans and somebody had celery and somebody had potatoes, if we brought all what we had together, we'd make soup and we'd all get fed, right? And so you finished with that because, as we close out, I think it's our closing time, right, Lewis? So I'm gonna do what organizations do and thank everybody, but I also want to be honest about where we are in our 16th year. So thank you, Pastor Curtis. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to our family who shared stories about the Gathering for Justice for the last 16 years. Tonight was a wonderful family reunion, a celebration of 16 years of legacy, of the continuation of the work that Harry Belafonte did with Dr. King, with SNCC, with all those that came before us, including C.T. Vivian, Bob Moses, John Lewis, Diane Nash, all these amazing people. Thank you to each and every one of our guests who joined. Please follow them and their organizations. As the Gathering celebrates 16 years, our 16th anniversary, and begins our next season of social and racial justice work, we find ourselves facing the same challenges as community-based organizations. And I wanted to share this because of something that Pastor Curtis said. In the past 16 years, the first 5 years of the Gathering, we were a movement. We organized in different communities, planting the seeds that you now see nurtured in this moment. But from the time it was 2010 to 2014, 2015, there was no real funding that was coming in. And from 2010 to 2013, 14, it was a one-woman show, and it was me. And to be here and celebrate 16 years, I did not want to lose hope in losing the Gathering for Justice. There are many times when we lost funding, transition in leadership, we lost relationships, we lost so many things, but we did not lose hope in wanting to continue this organization. And so for me, it is a miracle to celebrate 16 years. You know, I often would tell myself, my own mantra is, you know, excuses are for people who don't want it bad enough. And I thought that if I let go of the gathering, it's because I didn't want it bad enough. But I found myself alone so many times putting different things on my own credit card and having to pay it off with no funding. And so I ask those of you who can to make a donation. For those that are listening, this work is not easy, you know, and you would think with all the magnificent speakers that you heard that we would be a fully funded organization, but we're not. And so we rely on our community. And so we hope that you would make a donation of any size. You could go to our Cash App at $Gathering for Justice. You could also text The Gathering to 44321, or you could go to our website at gatheringforjustice.org. And also please follow us at NY Justice League and Gather4 Justice on Twitter and Instagram. And, you know, miracles, we make miracles happen with rice and beans. But at this moment, we make miracles happen with the dynamic staff that I have. And so I want to thank my COO, Danny Smapanda. Thank you for your dedication, for your partnership, for your belief that we could build something better. Thank you to Chris for always making sure that I am inserted into places. Thank you for having my back. Thank you for continuing to bring the gathering into every place that you are at. I want to thank Kevin for making sure that, you know, we are able to amplify and to share our voice on our digital platform by creating beautiful pieces, beautiful memes, beautiful images. Thank you so much. I want to thank Cassidy. Cassidy, thank you for always bringing the breath work into our lives, into our space, reminding us to stop. Thank you for capturing my voice, for elevating me, for reminding me that I am also important. Jules, thank you for riding with me for so long. You know, I went from a one-woman show to then it was two of us. It was you and myself. And so I just want to thank you for also giving me the confidence to share what I had, because you saw something in me. You pushed me to also see something in myself. And so I want to thank you. And I want to also thank Jasmine. Jasmine, I see myself in you, in the work that you do, in the hustle, in the lack of delegation. You love your community so much. You love our young people so much that there are times in which you put them before you. And I just want to thank you for your dedication. I want to thank you for your fight. I want to thank you for your courage. I want to thank you because you have such a huge heart that I don't think any of us could ever repay you for what you do for your community and the way you show up. So I want to thank you. And I want to thank you, Louis. Oh, okay, I was trying to do this without crying, but I want to thank you because I also see myself in you. You are this generation's voice. You are a leader. You are a thought partner. You are my mentee and you are my mentor. I am so grateful that I got to meet you. And, you know, I know that you say I cultivate you, but the way in which you show up in this space allows me to be whole. And so this work, whether it's fully funded or underfunded, it's all worth it because I have one of the most dynamic teams ever. and we make miracles happen regardless of what we have. But I do welcome you to consider us. Consider us when you're talking to somebody, because we build leaders. We shift the narrative. We shift culture. We do the work. We show up. And so thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to our Justice League family, Justice League California, Justice League NYC. We love you, to our fellows, for all your hard work. And thank you to everybody who continues to support us.
I would like to end this program without thanking you. And so I'm gonna insert myself. I know that wasn't the plan, but Carmen, I feel like you deserve a love letter from the movement. You deserve a love letter from our team. You deserve a love letter from people, from communities across the country. And if nothing else, I pray that you go to sleep every night knowing that we love you, we appreciate you, we see your grind, we see your dedication, and appreciate your leadership. I don't know too many folks who would ride out like you did for Mr. B. He said the word and you ran with it. And so I want to do that for you in your lifetime, whether it's in this space or in another space. I want to forever say your name, forever lift you up in any way that I can, because you deserve it in all the meaningful ways. And so I want to thank you for leading the gathering as our president and CEO. I want to thank you for your commitment and dedication to doing the work so intentionally, to lifting Black women up in this space, to centering young people, marginalized folks from across the country, to your commitment to mobilizing people, even if it requires your all. You give yourself even when you don't have enough to give to yourself. And that's what I want folks to understand in this space, that Carmen is selfless to the point where she brings even her children around her and gives them to the movement, gives them to our family here at the gathering in Justice League. And so we're blessed and honored to have you as our leader, as our visionary, as our freedom fighter, as our modern day Assata Shakur. And so I want to thank you for all that you do. And I look forward to an eternity of breaking chains with you, because that's all we have to do. I love you, and I love the gathering, and happy Sweet 16.
Love y'all. Thank you so much.